Well, we're excited to be back for day 2 of the student contest, Win a Scut Kiln, which is actually our 7th annual. The first 6 were actually held live at the Scut convention, or the Scut booth.
First 5.
The first 5, thank you. The first 5 at the NSECA Convention Center in the Scut booth. And last year, because of COVID, we ended up doing Just Us and Clay contest, and that was done virtually. And again, we're going to do it virtually again this year. I'm Paul Blaze, the host of the Potters Cast, and this is Stephen Hill, who is our judge, our amazing judge. And I'm excited to be able to do this with you, Stephen. So day 2 of the contest, there was a lot of good participation going on here in day 2. And like I said yesterday, I didn't envy you having to come up with just 3 of the best.
Oh, it is terrible. I appreciate doing it. I try. I love it. I rise to the occasion, but I'm always self-conscious about the choices I make, because in some way, everybody that participates is deserving of something.
Yeah. Well, just even putting yourself out there for the world to be judging your work like that's a little bit intimidating. And
yeah, if I'm putting myself out there with my work of judging, so that is intimidating. I feel for these people.
Yes. So tell us then, let's jump into this today. We have 3 winners today. And what's the first place, second place, and third place winners going to be again?
The prizes?
Yes.
It's $25, $50, and $100.
Nice. And then we're going to be doing
day prizes.
Yes, then we're going to be doing grand awards, and the grand awards will be, as you explained yesterday, there's going to be a functional award where that person will be overall functional. And I think the reason you said that is that some pieces will look great, they're winners, but some of them you felt like which ones would you enjoy to use the most? Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. The most inspiring entries sometimes are pieces that inspire your mind more than they inspire your act of drinking. And functional award is the piece I could most imagine using in my kitchen.
Nice. And that'll be $100 award. And then we've got the grand prize winner of overall, and that's going to be the winning of an 818 touchscreen kiln, correct?
With furniture and EnviroVent, the entire package.
The entire package. The EnviroVent sounds like amazing.
The only thing they have to supply is the pottery and the glazes and the skill to use them.
Nice, very good. Okay, so who's our third place winner today?
Third place winner on day 2 is Emily Hampson.
Oh, great! Let's check out her work. Go ahead. Why did you pick Emily?
I think of all the entries, Emily probably did the best job of making a cup from a technical perspective. She's making a double wall piece. Obviously, it's a small coil pot, and the double wall piece you will see here in a minute allows her to pierce the outside layer in order to add a decorative skin to the outside of the piece.
See, when I saw her making that piece, the first thing I thought when I first saw this video was thinking, boy, that is going to be a Mondo cup. And then I started to understand, oh, she's piercing it. That's what's going on. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And several things. I mean, the piece is remarkably symmetrical for being hand built like this, and the precision with which she was able to finish the form is really incredible. And in juxtaposition with that, she's actually got a handle that's actually got some organic qualities to it. And I probably wouldn't use this in my kitchen, but I'd put it on my mantle and admire the technical skill that went into producing it.
Nice. Yeah, that's a beautiful piece. That's a great choice, Stephen. Okay, so who was your that was your third place winner for the day. So who was your first place winner for, or I'm not your first, but your second place?
Second place was Emma Pons,
Emma Pond.
Ponds.
Nice. Okay, let's check
And
out her work.
of all the people that I watched videos from, she was one that the first time I watched it, it didn't quite register. I watched her video several times, and every time I watched it, I grew a little extra appreciation for what she was doing. The form itself is very straightforward with all these finger marks poking out from the inside. But I think where this really shines is the essentially sculptural drawing that she's doing on the outside of the piece. The detail of the drawing, I think, is just stupendous. And overall, it gives me the feeling for kind of an underwater scene.
Yes.
And
You feel like Under the Sea should be playing in the background there. Under the Sea.
yeah, and the handle kind of almost looks like the tentacle on a octopus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
But
beautiful
I
pot.
definitely feel there's some underwater theme going on there. So as I watched it for about the fifth time, I decided, man, she needs to be a prize winner for sure.
Yeah, that is a pretty phenomenal pot. I love that pot. So that was seems like was a bit of a no-brainer, like saying, yeah, that should be one of the winners. I love that you got to that, because that was very inspiring. I appreciate that one. So
Yeah.
now we get to our first place winner for day 2. And who would you pick for the first place winner, Stephen?
My first place choice on day 2 is Mike Serve.
Mike Serve. Well, let's check out his work. So what stuck out to you for Mike's work?
Well, first of all, he very effectively uses a pattern, but whereas sometimes when a pattern is used, it leads to a shape that's a little more mechanical and geometric. And in his case, it led to a very organic form. This reminds me of a tulip shape, or some kind of a flower, but it has a really soft feeling of being kind of made out of something softer than fired clay itself, and I appreciate the kind of combination of the soft organic with the use of a pattern to give him the final shape.
Yeah, that's a sweet pot. That was a good choice. I'm telling you, that's why I said, Stephen, that to pick out 3 of the winners, because we're not even touching base with all the other ones that were on day 2. But man, those are some real prizes there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you pick for day 3, because there is another group of potters, student potters, that have come up with some amazing pieces. And so I'm glad that it's you picking the winners and not me. So
I'm glad it's you handling all the technical expertise here.
Okay. Well, we'll see you tomorrow, Stephen, for day 3 of the student contest. Win a Scut. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. So we'll see you tomorrow, and lots of love to you, Stephen.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate being able to do this.
Hey, just wanted to pop on here real quickly, just as a reminder. We've got a special thing that Stephen is doing after each day of the recordings of with the demo. So Stephen, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Thanks, Paul. As one of the highlights for NSECA for me is being able to do a demo at the Scut booth each time. It's always a throwing demo of some kind, since I am a wheel thrower. But I recorded 3 throwing demos that will be featured with each of the 3 days of the contest. On day 1, my demo is throwing a tulip mug, which is my term for one of the shapes of the mugs I make. Day 2 is a tankard, flat bottom, taller, like beer mug. And on day 3, I'm doing a demo of Unomi, a handleless vessel for drinking tea. And each of those videos is about 20 minutes long, so they're fairly involved. I throw, I trim, and I pull handles in the demo, everything up to the point of glazing and firing. So please check them out along with the video entries from the students.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those, Steve. Thanks for doing them.
Okay, thank you. Well, here we are at day 2 of NCECA at the Scott booth, and I'm Stephen Hill, and we're going to make another drinking vessel. This time it's going to be a tankard, or a stein, or a large mug. I mean, I have trouble coming up with just one thing to call it all the time. It's a flat bottom. We did a trim foot yesterday, so today it's going to have a flat bottom. Oh, here. Today it's going to have a flat bottom and a different treatment, and fairly straight sides, so it'll be pretty different pot from what I made yesterday. This is actually one of my favorite forms to make, and one of my favorite to drink out of. This is about, if I'm going to get picky, somewhere between 1 3/4 and 2 pounds. Clay. And I always do get picky, by the way. It's just part of my nature. Flat bottom, so I just spread it evenly, leaving about 1/4 of an inch of clay at the bottom. I use this tool called a little chiseler, which is a perfect tool for compressing the bottom of pots. You can't buy them at most ceramic suppliers, but you can buy them on Amazon. Little chiseler. So essentially this pot is just a cylinder. Of course it's not. It's a cylinder that has lots of nuance about it. So when I said nuance, what I was really thinking about was what I'm going to be working on right now, which is an S-curve. So the cylinder comes up straight for a little while, and it turns inward, and then flares back out at the top. And to me, that S-curve makes the form more sensual and more dynamic. You know, throwing a cylinder is as basic as you get, but sometimes it takes quite a bit of effort to get just the right nuance. And of course I'm struggling with this one. Okay, that's getting about where I want it. I'm going to do some of the same things I did to the tulip mug yesterday. I'm going to turn this rim into a undulating rim that rises and falls. And of course, some of you didn't see yesterday's video. I don't know if they're all going to be up there at once. I hope they are, so people can watch them back and forth, but or re-watch them if they want. I don't really know how that's going to be done. Tell you a little story about this pot. I made a series of steins or tall coffee mugs when I was a student, and one of my teachers had a German stein that I was influenced by, and I decided I wanted to make them, and I made probably 20 of them, and I really liked them. They were kind of, you know, I hadn't learned any of the things I do on a regular basis about altering, but I was not nearly as skilled a thrower, so they came out a little wonky, and they had kind of a softness about them that I appreciated, and believe it or not, that was in 1972, and I still have 3 of those in my cabinet, which is just amazing. I don't have anything in between, but I have 3 of those steins that I made in 1972 that I still like, and they're my go-to root beer float mugs. So then I lost my ability to make them. I mean, I could make the form, but I couldn't make them to my satisfaction. As I became a better thrower, they got a little stiff. They got kind of unrelenting and mechanical looking, and I didn't like them. And so over time, I would maybe once every few years I would try to make one, and I just never could resolve it. Never could resolve it, and I'd make a series and then I'd give up again. Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, in my Wednesday class at 323 Clay, which I have some students here, we were making mugs, and I thought, I'm going to make a stein, and lo and behold, I just managed to use some current techniques of altering, and all of a sudden it came together and I liked it. So I started making them again, and they're actually one of my favorite items right now. But it was a long journey. Okay, so I'm going to do my S4 scraper and make a curvilinear line here at the bottom of the pot. You ready? So that's the first part of the mark. And the second part is I'm going to use this Mud Tools rib. It's fairly thin and rigid, and I'm going to slide it under this undercut, and I'm just going to lift base that kind of reflects what's happening at the rim of the pot. And I go back and soften it just a little bit to get rid of the harsh edges. Okay, now there's still one problem left. You see this transition point from the body to the rim. It's still straight. So this is my favorite mark. And the fact that it's up here and free of the bat and free of the rim puts it in a place where I can usually feel pretty good about what happens. So it's often got the best character of any of the marks on the pot. This one's left some crumbs there that I need to smooth off, but I think it's okay. Yep. Now I'm going to use a straight edge rib here, another Mud Tools rib, and make diagonal lobes again on this pot. I've got a friend, John Townley, that works for an animation studio, Blue Sky Studios in New York, and he is a very talented artist, and he's also a potter, very talented potter and sculptor. But he taught me about this concept called shape language. If you work in an animation studio and you work with maybe 50 different designers that are all working on a movie, everybody has to have a common language of marks, or else the movie doesn't work as a whole. Like if one designer draws a rock one way, the next designer has to draw the rock that way, or else it falls apart. And so the way that relates to pottery is that you see some very similar things that I did here to the tulip mug I threw yesterday. It gives kind of a common language of marks to the different pots I make, and it can apply to a large storage jar, a pitcher, a mug, but I will often use a very similar range of marks to kind of give it my signature in essence. Okay, now this one gets cut off. I'm very picky about the way I cut pots off, and I use a twisted wire, and I like that twisted wire to be part of the finished piece. You probably can't see the twist, but it's here. And if there's water on that undercut, it'll draw the water under the pot and it'll stick it back down, so I try to get rid of all that moisture before I cut the pot off. So from here I'm going to move to finishing the bottom on one and pulling a handle. Okay, this one was thrown. This is the one I threw today, and this one I threw yesterday. I actually like the one I threw today better. It's a little more elegant form than the one from yesterday. One of the things I do all the time is I'm constantly self-critiquing what I do. I make everything in series, but I try to leave room for experimentation and growth within that series. So I'm always looking back and saying, how does this pot work in relationship to the one I just threw, or to the one that's on the shelf that I threw a month ago? And it often doesn't show up in instantaneous growth, but over time it sparks evolution of the work and kind of gradually figuring things out. So you can see the wire mark on the bottom of the pot that I was talking about. And the way I finish this on the bottom is simply a paddle. There's always a burr that you have to do something with when you leave the bottom of a pot basically untouched. And paddling does a pretty good job of softening that burr. Also, another thing that works really well is to take a really clean, smooth bat. Just twist the pot a little bit and roll it a little bit. That does an amazing job of helping the transition between the wire marks and the rolled edge. So then also, after I do this, since I am extremely picky, I always kind of follow my wet fingers along this line and try to make sure it's cohesive. Try to make sure that it moves in a smooth way, in a fluid way. If I didn't change anything very much, I just kind of finished how I felt about the bottom of this pot. Now it's handle time. I start with a kind of a flattened wedge. That way my taper that I pull into the handle is already started just by pounding. Makes the actual beginning of the stretching the clay into the handle a little bit easier to start. I'm always rotating 180 degrees to try to keep things fairly symmetrical. What I'm shooting for on the profile of a handle is a kind of a nice oval shape. Thinner on the edges, thicker in the middle. That's to me a very comfortable form to hold in the hand. I also like handles that have a reasonable amount of width to them. And this pot, I think, can support the width in a visual sense. Okay, so before I pick that handle up, I'm going to score the pot where I'm going to attach it. And I attach it to that upper wavy line. It's kind of my anchor point. See the score there? Pat the butt end of the handle until it's into a flare. Gives me the clay I need to join it to the pot without taking it from the cross section of the handle itself. I think that's one of the weak points in a lot of students' handles when they're just starting to pull handles, is not having enough clay up here to work with as they're pressing it into the pot. Always start in the middle to make sure it's well attached, and then work towards the edge, pressing the clay in. And I let we'll kind of work with gravity here. Let the handle hang down while I'm finishing up this attachment. I always blend in the underneath side pretty thoroughly. But the upper side, I always leave finger marks, because I like the evidence of how the handle was attached.
Oh, no.
Okay, now if the taper is right, I should be able to have it just take the shape it wants to take. On this tall of a pot, the handle almost never goes all the way to the bottom, because I think if the handle's significantly longer than it needs to be, it gets kind of gangly. My attachment at the base is meant to be reflective of the same kind of attachment I had up at the top. So when this pot's fired, my preferred way to hold it is with 3 fingers through the handle and my pinky resting down here. It seems to be more stable. I've got a couple of similar forms that are finished here that I can show you what I'm talking about. To me, that having 3 fingers through and 1 finger underneath the handle, I'm not sure how I can show this the best, makes it, here I can show it left-handed, that's why, makes the pot more stable to hold on to. Some people like to put all 4 fingers through, but I'd prefer not to. And here's a couple of different glaze combinations that I use for the tankard forms. They've got some pretty serious clay fingerprints on them right now. So, thank you.